Hi there, my name is Ollie Burns and I perform on wrestling shows as Priscilla, Queen of the Ring. Are you looking to start wrestling training? Perhaps you're a new trainee and you're looking to get far nice and quickly. Then this is the video for you, because I'm going to be bringing you my top 5 tips for new wrestling trainees. Tip number 1. Don't be afraid to turn up for your first session. I understand that if you're looking to do wrestling training, chances are you've been a huge wrestling fan for a long time, and I can really relate to people who are scared to turn up for their first training session. Just like with many things in life, it's really easy to blow things out of proportion inside your head, and perhaps you feel like maybe you're not quite ready for that first class yet. I have met a lot of people who haven't ended up training for 2 or 3 years because they're stuck in that mindset. But a journey of 1,000 paces starts with just one step, and your first step is turning up to that training class. Believe you me, every person that you train with and every person that you see on a show has had to go through these same emotions, and every person has had to work up the courage to turn up to their first training session. But rest assured, every person you meet at your training school, especially your coach, will understand that you have those fears, and they have had those fears, and they will help you overcome them. The journey to becoming a pro wrestler is really exciting, and the scariest bit is coming for that first class. Once you've got that step out of the way, everything else is much easier. You will be surprised and proud of yourself just by the fact that you can turn up to that first class. So don't hesitate any longer. Have a look online, find some local wrestling schools, and make sure that you're available on the next day of their training, because you are ready for your first class. You just need to go. Tip number 2. Always be yourself. It is very frequent that we see new trainees turning up to wrestling classes with huge gimmicks in their mind, a whole moveset ready to go, and they are looking to train those particular personality traits and those particular movesets straight away. I can't stress this enough when I say that you need to be yourself. Go with an open mind and just be honest about what you're bringing to the table. You may be surprised as you go along your wrestling journey to find some things which you're really good at that you never thought you'd be able to do, and other things which you were really excited to learn, but turns out your body just will not work when it comes to doing those moves. Over the years, you will face a number of different kinds of wrestlers, so it is very important right from the get-go to start learning the lessons that your coach lays out for you. You need to be able to work with all different styles of performers, so going in there saying I'm going to be doing X, Y, Z and I don't need A, B and C is not necessarily going to help you get far very quickly. In fact, this mindset can turn people off of you altogether. So don't go in there with the preconceived notions of the things that you are and aren't going to be doing. Just go in there as an open book, ready to learn. Furthermore, regarding personality, a lot of people have in their minds a certain wrestling persona which they think they're going to be able to bring out just through practicing it in training. I can tell you from personal experience that you can't necessarily train out your genuine personality. So with that in mind, don't go in there thinking you're going to be the next Hellblazer and you're going to change the world just because you have a great concept inside your head. By not being yourself, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to maintain this personality, and you will find that as soon as you let that facade drop, the other trainees will pick up on it, and it will make you look a lot less confident than you would be if you just turned up on the first session and you were honest about who you are. Once again, don't worry if you're feeling anxious, because a lot of wrestling trainees feel anxious the first few years of training. Just be sure to be yourself and have as much fun as possible as you learn different things. You will find it much easier to make lasting connections with people, and you will also find that you have a more pleasant experience as you're able to be honest with yourself and honest with your fellow trainees and your coach. It's worth bearing in mind that most wrestling schools are very much a social meeting ground for a whole bunch of kooky, crazy, geeky types. Every one of us are wrestling fans at the end of the day, so every one of us have a fair bit of geek inside us. Don't be afraid to let your geek flag fly. I'm not saying being unbearable by any means, I'm just saying that don't be worried about letting your true personality shine through, because it's that personality which is going to get you far. Tip number 3, basic fitness. Sure, the people that we look up to on TV typically tend to be in peak physical condition, but don't worry too much about being an Adonis before you start your first training class. Another thing that holds a lot of people back when it comes to wrestling training is worrying about being physically fit enough to manage the classes. But bear in mind that every wrestling school trains in a basic level of fitness within their trainees. The things you learn and the drills you go through will help naturally train your body into being a more physically fit body to be able to cope with the demands of wrestling. That being said, you will find that those classes will definitely take a toll on your body. And if you do have a little bit of muscle mass, and if you do have a decent basic level of cardio, you will find that you're able to learn things much quicker, it will take less of a toll, and you will find yourself walking out of those classes feeling much more fresh than some other people that may be a little more out of shape. Like I said, it's not something to put you off of going altogether, but a basic level of fitness will absolutely ease your mind and ease you into the world of wrestling. If you do 2 or 3 weeks of a home Pilates course, for example, you will find your body is much more capable when it comes to doing these basic levels of fitness. If you're really stuck for inspiration, then banging out 30 to 50 press-ups every day for a couple of weeks, along with some squats, along with some sit-ups, you will find that really helps you when it comes to your first training class. So try to get a basic level of fitness in before you start training, but at the same time, don't let it hold you back from training at all, because it's better that you turn up to that first class where they will train you physically so that you are ready for those classes than to not train at all. Tip number 4, attire. It can be hard to know what you should wear for your first training class, and a lot of training websites won't specifically tell you exactly what you need to wear, but don't worry, because Ollie Burns has the answer for you. I see a lot of trainees turning up in t-shirts that show the logo or the face of their favourite wrestler. Now, I personally would recommend that you don't do this. The reason for that is very similar to projecting a personality which is not your own. What happens when you wear a Seth Rollins t-shirt is that people in the class immediately say, they're a Seth Rollins fan. Let's compare them to Seth Rollins at every possible opportunity. Now, you know and I know that it's just a case of you being a big fan of Seth, but that does not mean that it's a good idea to wear his t-shirt to your first training class. In my opinion, it's much better to go as a blank slate. So get yourself down to a simple sports store and get yourself a basic training outfit. Something like a simple tracksuit will do, a vest, a t-shirt, some basketball shorts, things that you can move around in, things that your body will be able to breathe in. Perhaps more importantly, we need to talk about pads and boots. Now, knee pads and elbow pads are really important, especially in your early days of wrestling training. 9 out of every 10 trainee that I see turns up and they are horrified at the scuff marks that they get. We're talking bleeding elbows, bleeding knees, so it's difficult to walk around day after day. That 1 in 10 trainee is the person that buys professional elbow pads and professional knee pads before their first session. There is a lot to choose from, but you're looking for basic knee pads that do not have any hard surfaces within them. Knee supports will also help, but they will not replace knee pads altogether. So my advice would be to get some knee supports along with some slightly larger knee pads that will fit over them in order to give you the best protection possible. Similarly, with boots, you'll need to find yourself some training boots that have a flat surface on the bottom. For 17 years, I have trained wearing boxing boots. Now, boxing boots are quite cheap to get from your local sports store, and you will find they're under 20 quid and at the same time able to offer your foot very good support for when you're running around and doing your bumps in training. Another important thing to note when it comes to your boots is to not turn up in trainers that you're going to train in. You want to make sure that you bring a change of boots to your training classes. And that's because you don't want to be treading in all the mud that you've taken from outside. Even though you may think your treaded trainers are clean, I guarantee you, if you step into the ring without clean boots and if you don't wipe them on the apron, you will trudge in mud, you will trudge in dust into that wrestling ring. That mud will be picked up when you and your fellow trainees are rolling around and bumping on it. You do not want to make an enemy of the person that runs that training school, because chances are they're going to be responsible for getting you your first work. And if the first impression you leave on them is that you've made their expensive canvas muddy, they are going to resent that and it will be noted. So make sure you have the correct training gear. You want a basic training outfit. You want a pair of elbow pads, a pair of knee pads, and a pair of flat-soled boots that you can change into once you arrive. Most training schools will be able to point you in the right direction of vendors who can get you these items. And even better if that training school has their own training gear, because you can purchase that gear so that you look in line with your fellow trainees right from day one, and you also build up some good-natured relationship between you and the promoter as you're helping their business whilst they help train you as a professional wrestler. Tip number 5, hygiene. A good friend of mine says that there is nothing more intimate beyond sex that you can do with another human being apart from wrestling them. When you think about it, we're talking about getting your head stuck up inside a headlock. We're talking about putting on body scissors with your legs around their bodies and their heads. You're going to be getting in very close and very personal with a lot of people that you don't know very well. That in mind, make sure that hygiene is right at the top of your mind when you're training. Nobody wants to be stuck in a bear hug with someone who has lots of body sweat coming off of their hairy chest. Long time wrestlers have said that if you can shave your armpits, and ideally if you can shave your chest and perhaps your back if you need to, then that will put you in good stead with your fellow trainees and your co-workers, because you're showing that you're being considerate of them by not having body hair that's going to soak up lots of moisture and keep stale sweat on you for longer than necessary. Ideally, you want to be able to have a shower before you go to your training class, but at the same time that's not always possible. And during the classes, you will also find that you get hot and bothered and very sweaty. So with that in mind, always make sure that you have a couple of cans of deodorant in your bag. One for you and one for anybody else that may need it. Trust me, if somebody else needs it and they ask you for it, you want to be able to give them some deodorant. I appreciate that some people are more conscious than others when it comes to personal hygiene, and some people have genuine problems that they struggle with. But as long as you keep in mind that you are within close contact with a lot of other people and you try your best to put your hygiene first, others will appreciate it and they will return in kind. With hygiene, it's also important to make sure that you're drinking plenty of water. If you're drinking caffeine-based substances, then your sweat is going to be slightly more unpleasant, and it's also going to be harder for your body to process all the exercise that you're doing. Plenty of people like to bring energy drinks to classes, but at the same time, it's very likely that they're going to crash out halfway through. Now, you may not have experienced this yourself before, but if you are physically tired during a training class, you will find that your body has a harder time adapting to the exercise that you're doing. So it will sweat more, and you will find that it is harder to maintain that good hygiene. So along with that deodorant, bring plenty of water. Make sure you bring it yourself, just in case there's any problems with taps at the training school, and make sure you have a good supply to keep you hydrated throughout that class. So there you have it. That's my top 5 tips for new wrestling trainees. I hope this has been useful, but if you have any questions or concerns, please leave a comment below and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. And if you think I've missed anything, then be sure to include it down below as well, because the more minds we have sharing knowledge, the quicker we all can learn as a community. Thanks for studying with me today. I have been Ollie Burns. Be sure to subscribe for future content so that you can continue to study the theory of wrestling.